What's going on, guys? My name is Emin from Jermuk, and I'm here to give you guys another tutorial on metering, on how to reference your music to other songs and how to use meters correctly to make sure that yours is as loud and as powerful in both the high end and the low end. So the first song is mine. This is from me and Renee on Jermuk, and let's see. Second one is Lit by Ollie James, and then Aruna by Ollie James as well. So just two reference tracks. You can use more. You can only use one. I would recommend 2 to 3 to make sure things sound good. But the first thing you want to do is make sure you know how to reference before you actually do the referencing. So there's two types of meters for the most part. It's RMS and LUFS, the two ways to measure loudness. RMS is more sensitive to the low end, and LUFS is more sensitive to the high end, like the perceived loudness. So it's important you use both, and it's important you use the same meter on the other track. So don't use two different meters from two different companies to measure your loudness, because it's not going to match probably. The algorithms are going to be different, the scales are going to be different, and so it's going to be useless. The comparison is going to be useless. You have to use the same one. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one you use. They give different values and they don't matter. Just the value itself doesn't matter. What matters is yours the same as the other one or close. That's all that pretty much matters. So the reason you would use both RMS and LUFS is, like I said, because LUFS is more sensitive to high end and RMS is more sensitive to low end. So if I played, so this is just for my track, Jermuk Go Back, which is it's mastered, it's completed, it's released. So I'm not gonna adjust anything. I'm just gonna use it to show you guys how to reference. So if I just press play, I've muted the volume so that I can play it and we can hear and we can see what's going on. Because if I stop playing it, then the meters go away and it's not really useful. Okay, so here's the RMS. It's at almost negative 6 RMS, and the LUFS is at -5 LUFS. Now, what I said before was this is more sensitive to low end, this is more sensitive to high end. So I can show you an example of that. So if I take an EQ and I use a high pass and I just literally take out all the bass. So if you look at the spectrum, this is how it was before. There's a massive sub bass right here, and then use the EQ and there's no more sub bass. If you look at the LUFS, so I'll refresh it, we're at -7 LUFS. That's only about -2 below. But if you look at the RMS, it went from -6 all the way down to below -10. So that should tell you right there that this is not as bad. But obviously if you listen to the song, if I were to raise the volume of the track, you would hear that it's completely missing bass. But the LUFS is telling you -7, which is not that bad. But the RMS is telling you way too low. And if I were to do it the other way, so if I were to put a low pass, and I would pretty much take out all the high end, my RMS jumps back up. It's almost -6. It's barely below what it was before. And my LUFS is almost -9, -8. So it's three LUFS lower. So again, this is more. So this tells you it's good. This one's telling you it's low. So that's why you got to use two different meters. So I'll just turn this off now. We don't need this anymore. And it goes back to where it was, -6 and -5. So I'm gonna go one by one on comparing these three tracks. So this one over here, this is Aruna, Ollie James. This one here is Lit, Ollie James. And this one is Jermuk Go Back. So if you look at the RMSs, pretty similar all throughout, right? -6, almost -6. This is just above -6. And this is about -7. If you're making big, I don't know, it depends what genre you guys make. So you have to obviously reference a song that sounds similar to yours. Not only in the genre, but in the style of that genre. So if I were to reference a Hardwell song where it's just a kick and a synth, it's going to sound a lot different in its metering than a Ollie James track where there's a bunch of shit going on. and mine has a bunch of other things going on with like white noise, crowd noise, a huge distorted bass, a big synth, a bunch of drums. So they're pretty comparable. Same thing with the other Aruna track. Both the Ollie James track have that style. So make sure you reference with a song that sounds similar to yours. And then if I were to reference like other songs, majority are around like -7 to like -6. That's like majority of big room sits there. Majority of like pop sits there. You probably won't see anything go below -8. If you're below -8, you're probably way too low. Usually it's at least between -6 and -8. If you sit around there, you should be fine in terms of RMS. And then let's check out the LUFS. So this is for LUFS for Go Back. This is LUFS for Ollie James, Lit, and this one is Aruna. So again, Go Back, Lit, and Aruna. So again, all pretty much almost the same. These ones are a little bit louder, but these are also done by Spinnin' Records or Revealed Recordings, wherever they were released. So they professionally mastered, but mine's pretty close. -5, -4, -4.5. So that's how you can check. So now you know, okay, and then this is just visual. Obviously, you also use your ears. But I don't want to play the songs and get a copyright, so we're not going to do that. But that's a way that you can check the LUFS and the RMS to make sure your track is the same volume. And then you can also use a spectrum, any kind of spectrum, EQ or whatever, to make sure your low end is the same as the other track. So this is Go Back. It's around -6 for the sub, and then it's pretty nice and even down here. If I were to check Ollie James, pretty much same thing. You have this big sub bass, and then kind of slopes down evenly, nicely down there. And same thing right here. Big sub bass. His is like a different key, and he uses the octave of the kick, octave of the sub. That's why it's up here. So usually it would be here, but he does a little different technique in this track. So you gotta also pay attention to what the song is doing, so that you don't mess up and think, oh, yours is doing some weird stuff. Why is his doing this and mine? This is just an octave higher on his sub bass. That's all there is to it. And then again, it just slopes down. So the last thing is, again, make sure the meters are the same in all of them you use. So for example, if you used, let's say for the Ollie James track, I used, instead of the Fab Filter Pro L to measure loudness, I used this right here, the Isotope Maximizer. If I use this, let's just put this back up to 0. So it's not doing any limiting. This is RMS right here. It's telling me it's at -2 RMS, -2.5. And if I check mine, the Fab Filter Pro L, this is telling me -6. And that doesn't make sense, right? How could 1 meter tell you this? It's just different algorithms. So, but if I were to take this maximizer and put it here, right? So this is for Go Back. This one is for Go Back, and then this one is for Lit. The RMS is telling me -3. So again, it's comparable, right? -2.5, -3, almost the same. Good enough. Move on. If you can't push the limiter any harder, or whatever, then this is good enough. No one's gonna really notice a half a decibel difference, especially like at a club or at a rave when it's just speakers are blasting. So it's important to use the same meters. Don't change your meters, and don't listen to other people online when they tell you, oh, I use -6 RMS on my meter, because again, it matters on the plugin, right? The plugin will give you a different reading. I think that's pretty much it on how to like reference at the end. There's other techniques you can do as well, but I'm not gonna go into those, like how to check for the sub, what the sub is doing and stuff. I mean, you can like, for example, I can put this right here. I can completely take out the low end. I mean, completely take out the high end, so I just have sub bass pretty much. And then I can use the LFO tool, put it on my preset of view, and I can see that the bass in this track is the sub. This is all sub, and it's consistent all throughout. So I could, you know, do the same thing on this one. See, okay, is my sub consistent throughout, or is my sub changing volume, and it's, you know, it's the same, right? It's the same thing the whole time. The sub is consistent the entire way. Let me see if I have another reference song I can. Let's see which one of these. I think We Control the Sound is a good one. Let's wait for it to load. Okay. This song is 130, so I'm gonna take it up to 130. Turn off the warp. Pretty sure this is the drop. So let's get those meters back. Okay. Let me make sure this is a drop. Yeah, so this is definitely the drop. So if you look at this one, the sub is kind of dying out. So if I were to take off everything, now you can see it's kind of it decays down. And then if you pay attention, you can see that this distorted part of the kick is a lot louder than the other ones. So this is like where the distortion of the kick happens, and it's much louder, much more harmonics than, let's say, like the Ollie James one. The drop was here. See, it's much more like it slopes down. So it's like -12 and then -18, and then it kind of slopes down. Whereas in this one, it's kind of sloping up and then it goes back down, right? This is way above -12. So the more distortion you have, the less sub you want for in general. And then so the less sub you want, the way you would want to get rid of the sub is like this. You would just you would have it like pound in that beginning, and then it would kind of filter off. So that's how you can use referencing to change, to see how your song matches up with other songs, and depending on what style you want and how you want to do things, you would adjust your song in a similar way. All right, hope you guys learned something. See you guys next time.